Hello everybody, greetings and welcome, and thank you so much for joining our webinar here today on importing from China and Asia. My name is Jason and I'm one of the co-founders of ultimahub.com. Today's webinar is going to be showing you step by step the crucial elements of the import process. In all honesty, a lot of people seem to be a bit wary of getting into the export market due to unforeseen eventualities that might happen. They could be a bit scared, but to be honest, it's actually not that bad as long as you know what to expect, when to expect it, and how to deal with it, which is what our platform and hopefully what this webinar will show you here today. So we're actually going to be using a case study. It's a smart Wi-Fi wall socket. We chose it because it's one of our clients' products that's done really well recently. Everyone seems to like buying smart stuff. So yeah, we thought it would be a good example. But it really doesn't matter what product it is. It's usually the same process or fairly similar anyway, especially as far as the webinar goes and the steps and the procedure, etc. And yeah, the course itself that we have, the packages that we have, will go into more detail depending on your product. But this webinar itself will give you massive amounts of information, and I promise you it will give you more information than if you go on YouTube and Wikipedia or download documents or podcasts or whatever. I've tried to actually put as much into this webinar as I possibly can and give you as much guidance as I possibly can on what to expect if you're looking to import from China and Asia and sell overseas. So anyway, I hope you find it interesting. I hope you find it rewarding, and given that, let's just dive straight in onto the webinar itself. Okay, so one of the first things that you're going to come up against when you're deciding to import a product and design a product is OEM and ODM. So it's quite beneficial to know early on what these terms mean. Now, a lot of the products on Amazon, for example, are ODM, Original Design Manufacturer, which is, well, it's also known as private label or white label. It basically means you can make alterations to it. With white label, you pretty much just put your logo on it. But with private label, you can make design changes within limits to existing products. So it's definitely the best way initially to begin importing from anywhere, really, because you can actually look at existing products, make changes to them, and make them exactly how you want them without changing them too much or without, redesigning or designing from scratch a completely new product. OEM, on the other hand, original equipment manufacturer, is when you recruit a company, you recruit a manufacturer to make the product for you, and you give the complete product specification, and you're pretty much designing a product from scratch. So for example, Apple and Dell, they don't have their own factories, they make the design, they have the patents on the design, and they have a manufacturer, an OEM manufacturer, to actually make the products for them. So yeah, this webinar will cover both. The process is similar, it's pretty much the same. We're going to go through step by step of all of the process, and it is exactly the same, really. Now, the only thing is, if it's an ODM product, you'll probably not have to give as much information on the product specification as you would on an OEM. You'd have to give far more so that the supplier knows pinpoint exactly what you need to do and what they need to design for you. Also, this webinar covers multi-regions. We're actually going to be talking about China, although the same process is for Vietnam, India, Thailand, anywhere that you're looking to import from. China's still the biggest exporter. It's still the best place to go because China's been doing it for so long. So we're using China as an example, as I'm based in China. And but yeah, just to let you know, you can actually use it wherever you're importing from. So what I mean by step-by-step and customizable is that the process is the same. Wherever or whatever product you are looking to import, it's going to be the same process, and you can customize the process as you wish depending on your product. So ask as many questions as you wish. As mentioned, you can leave comments, suggestions, questions on the right hand side of the screen at any point during this webinar, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. We guarantee basically that we'll get back to you within 48 hours to any questions that come in during this webinar. So, just a little bit about Ultima Hub itself. We work with multiple industries. We've worked with some of the largest multinational companies across the world. We've been here in China since 2011. We actually began our journey in, over 15 years ago. We began in the UK and now we've moved our head office over here in China. And we're skilled in both offline and online training. We were doing offline training for many years, and most of the companies that we were working with initially, including the suppliers and manufacturers, was on a face-to-face offline basis. But we worked with them so well that we really learned their internal procedures and how they like to work with the buyers and how to improve their service that they offer to the buyers. So what we've done with this course is to make everything a seamless process by providing you with all of the tools and templates and webinars and online learning that you will ever possibly need when you are looking to import products from the Asia region. So as I'm going to show you later on, we've got the product specification documents, we have all of the contracts that you're going to need, we've got the email templates, we've got the spreadsheets. Everything is step by step laid out in a very, very systematic way so that it will help anybody who is looking to import from China. And even if you're already importing, the process and the system that we've got in place works really well, especially for suppliers, because it lays everything out both for the buyer and also the supplier to make sure that they design the product exactly as it's required. So we've got online experts and forums available 24/7. Because of the time difference, we might not get back to you straight away, but we guarantee to get back to all of our customers all of the time, and we will give you impartial advice and information as much as we possibly can. We will give you completely concrete information. If we don't know the answer, we will find out the answer, and we can actually sort of delve in and help you also with processes. If you don't actually want to carry out the work yourself, we can help with that too. Because of the amount of sort of network and because of the amount of time that we've been in this business, we do have a large network in the APAC region, the Asia Pacific region, of manufacturers, suppliers, lab and quality testing companies, agents, tax and shipping providers. What we've actually done with this, the whole import-export course, is we're giving you all of the information, we're giving you all of the resources and where to look and how to do it yourself. But we do actually provide some of the referrals or the services ourselves, because we know how to do it well. A lot of our customers tend to use, which I'm going to show you a little bit later on, for example, our online supplier checker. So maybe you've found your supplier, but you're not quite sure if it's the right supplier. We can actually, you'll be able to, within the course, you'll be able to sort of check the supplier by answering a few questions to make sure you've chosen the best supplier. But we also have, for example, free quotations for shipping and the quality testing and the lab testing. And whether or not you choose to go ahead with it is completely up to you. But it's very good for a reference point. If you're looking to, for example, do some shipping, if you want to ship from or the actual transporting of the goods, and you're looking at shipping quotations, we can give you a free quotation. So you can actually benchmark that or use that as a benchmark against any other quotations that you find. Or if you find that ours is cheaper, which it actually tends to be because we get a discount on it, then that's great too. And then you can go with our quotation and our sort of verified supplier. So that's entirely up to you. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit more in more detail about all of these bits and pieces later on and show you how they all work. But I just wanted to give you an overall view on this slide. Anyway, let's move on. So I'd like to briefly show you that we are with you every step of the way. And the way we've arranged the platform is to put it into three main categories, which is importing and exporting, online selling, which is selling your product once you've had it delivered to you, and also developing your business. It happens frequently that you will find that if you really do have a great product, a good selling product, your business will grow very rapidly, and you're going to need to arrange a team, and you're going to need to be able to become a leader very quickly to ensure that your business grows really well. The online selling package is going to be there to help you to promote all of your products that you have imported to you. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I'd just like to show you the steps on each of the processes, because they are all essential if you are serious about building an online import business, selling products and building a revenue stream for the rest of your life, which could be in addition to the job that you're currently working in, or it's a standalone business in itself, depending on how far you want it to grow. So for the import and export training, we look at Alibaba and Global Sources, and we show you how to source suppliers in the best possible way to get the best possible results from them, negotiate the contracts, arrange the quality control, the lab testing, all of the tax and regulations and duties, etc. that you're going to need. And also the reason we've put Amazon FBA, the fulfillment by Amazon, into the import export training package is because often people will look at products on Amazon to see how well they're selling, enabling them to choose or to help them to decide which product they actually want to move forward with, which is going to give them the best results in the market. Now, when you actually do receive your products and when you've got them imported, obviously you need to sell them. So the online selling package, we help you to build a website. We actually show you how to build an online e-commerce website using WordPress, using WooCommerce, which is a massively powerful platform. But also we have Shopify as well. We show you how to use Shopify, which is great. It's an out-of-the-box solution if you want to sell your products. To be honest, though, I like WordPress. I think WordPress is good because you have complete control over it, whereas with Shopify you sort of pay them a monthly management fee, and if you remove or if you decide I don't want to pay Shopify anymore, then your website disappears. A little bit like HubSpot, to be honest, but Shopify is still a massively powerful platform that can be used out of the box with very little sort of work needed doing on it. But for a serious investor, for a serious sort of, if you're looking to really start your business and make it grow and want it to continue to grow, personally I suggest WordPress. So we focus on both, and it's entirely up to you which you choose. Freelancers are fantastic. We've been using freelancers since whenever. I think 15, maybe even 20 years. I think I've been actually using freelancers even before our company was formed, because it's great having freelancers there. You outsource bits and pieces that you need doing. It means that you don't need to have full-time employees. However, they could be based in the Philippines, they could be based in India. It depends where they are. You need to be able to communicate with them effectively. We give you the guidance and show you how to work well with freelancers. It is a bit of an acquired skill. It's not, as a lot of people think, oh yeah, I'm just going to get this designed and then they send it to a freelancer and they expect fantastic results first time. It doesn't really work unless you know how to use both the platform, both like Freelancer and UWork and different freelancer platforms. There's other platforms in the Philippines too. How you use the platform and how you communicate with the freelancers really does make a difference. So we're going to be talking to you about that. We've got a whole course on it. Selling on Amazon itself, getting the Amazon box, the click to pay. You can have your product on Amazon, but you might not be the one that has the add to cart button, for example, the sort of buy box. So we actually show you how to get high ranking results on Amazon and get that buy box to enable you to sell your products better. Now, coming back to the websites, if you have your website, whether it's Shopify or WordPress or whatever, you're going to need SEO both online and offline so that people can find you on Google, Yahoo and Bing. So we show you how to do your on-page SEO and also link building, and also how to build strong manual links, and also some link building tools, which are also very good, very useful. Digital marketing, obviously essential. Social media marketing, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and or many of the others, Instagram and all of the affiliates. It's a great way to build strong links, and also in their own right, it's a great way for you to use those platforms and get your product on or seen by many people across the world, and presenting your business. Obviously, whether you're doing it face to face, whether you're doing it online, it depends on your product. It depends on your vision and your goals with your product and your sort of sales approach. but we have courses on actually presenting your business in video forms, face-to-face, to a crowd. Maybe you're going to go to a conference, maybe you're going to have your own online webinars. We're going to actually show you how to present your business as best you possibly can, and it will escalate. And when it does escalate, you're going to know, well, you're going to want to know how to grow your business, how to grow your team, how to become a strong leader, and everything that it encompasses. So consultative selling, effective communication within your team, within your partners, with your investors, etc. Body language is obviously essential, and your time management skills, your team building, and obviously your leadership abilities and skills and persona and everything you're going to need to really make your business a complete success. So we're there from start to finish, from the import through to the selling, and also to growing your business also. So given that, as I said, this webinar is focused on mainly it's just focused on importing and exporting from China and Asia. So we're going to be looking at the 7-step process and how you can actually import using these 7 fairly simple systematic steps. Now, it begins with the product specification. A product specification document is something that you're going to need so that you can lay out in clear detail to the supplier exactly what you need. We've seen some buyers in the past have actually sent, a picture of something they like, and they say, "Yeah, I want these. I want 1,000 of these, please." That's a worst case scenario, and the supplier gets it, and with the results that they receive are probably not up to their expectations. Our product specification document will help you to give everything that the supplier needs and wants to be able to make any alterations to an ODM product, or to design your OEM product completely perfectly, using images, file attachments, all the specification details. And we actually go into, we have a material guide on the platform itself, and also the spreadsheets so that you don't miss anything. So you have all of the specifications for each specific area of whichever product that you're wanting to get the manufacturer to design. Again, I'm going to show you that a bit later on. And compliance and regulation. The reason that's second is because compliance and regulation is a massive influence on whichever product you are actually looking to import. It's better to look at the compliance and the regulations beforehand, rather than make your product, get your product delivered, and then think, oh my gosh, I've got to pay this now, or maybe it doesn't comply at all, in which case you could lose your product, you could lose huge amounts of cash, because maybe your product cannot be imported and sold in the target country that you're wanting it to. So it's good to look at compliance and regulation very early on. Product samples or supplier sourcing and selection. We're going to be talking about how to source the best suppliers, what to look for, and we're going to be doing that a bit today. Actually, we're going to be looking at different things on Alibaba and the things that you need to focus on to make sure you've got the best supplier given certain criteria, and then getting your samples as well. You need the sample contracts, which our import course has. We've actually got sample contracts that you can download. It's a template so that you can actually send that to your the supplier of choice to get some samples from those suppliers. It's usually not one. You can ask for a few samples if you wish. It's entirely up to you. Maybe it's good to get a few. It's usually good to get a few so that you can actually look at each in their own merit, and and you sort of compare each by each, and it's the best way you can test it, and then you can really choose the best supplier. Usually people tend to find, after receiving the samples, that they find it's the best way to actually choose their supplier, regardless of the criteria and the sort of connectivity and communication that you have. But anyway, we'll be talking about all of these. I just want to run through the 7 steps really quickly here. Contractual agreements. Obviously, you need to have an agreement. You've got to have it in writing. It gives you legal comeback, but more than that, it sort of gives you peace of mind, and it's rather than legal comeback, because you don't really want to go down the whole road of suing a supplier. It's a timely process, an expensive process at that. Also, it's better just to make sure that your contract is watertight. And so yeah, we give you some templates that you can use, add to, definitely, but it's got all of the essentials on there, timescales, payment terms, etc. So yeah, really, really useful. Again, I'll be showing you that a little bit later on. With regards to production quality, lab testing as well, you need to know when to get it. Where will I need it? Do I need it? Production and quality, obviously, you want to check the quality. You've got to see the quality. If you're going to have a 10,000 batch of products, you want to make sure that the quality is good. So you need to get some sort of samples, not just the pre-production samples, but at the initial stage of production as well. You want to have sort of videos from the suppliers or photos of the chain, and you want to try and get some some actual product samples at the very beginning, especially in an OEM. If you're going to an OEM manufacturer and you're designing a product, a lot of the time the tooling, for example, tooling is basically the equipment that is made specifically for you, for your product. If your product doesn't exist already, the manufacturer is going to have to make the molds, for example. I think that's the best way to describe it. For example, if you're making a new product that they don't currently provide as an ODM product, you're going to need the mold, and that mold is going to be exclusive to you. That's going to be patented by you. That's going to be your own mold. So it's good. But sometimes they will give you a design, or they'll give you a sample of your OEM product, but it will be different to when the massive manufacturing goes ahead. So you actually want to get samples twice. But yeah, it's quite a detailed sort of process, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Lab testing, sometimes it's a requirement. So you need lab testing. You have to have lab testing as a regulation, as a requirement. Sometimes you might just want to do it just in case, and also because there could be changes in regulations in the future. So it can be beneficial to get the lab test done anyway, but it's not always essential, and it really does depend on your product. And with regards to shipping, tariffs, and payment, when to pay, how to pay, what payment platforms to use, and also with the samples as well. We go into details about which platforms to use to pay. Usually with your final product, your bulk product, the mass products, you're gonna. Well, if you're comfortable with the supplier, they usually do. You'll arrange a bank transfer, but there's escrow accounts and there's other ways. Like, for example, Alipay actually, not Alipay, Alibaba has a method of paying through their website, but the fees are quite high. So anyway, we'll give you all the options. We'll talk to you about that, as well as options for the shippings and the tariff too. So these are the 7 steps. We're going to be going through each in far more detail as we go through the course. And well, this is actually what we're going to be looking at today. This is the case study. This is actually one of our clients' products, and it is an Alexa and Google Assistant compatible Wi-Fi smart socket. These things are fantastic, really. As if you're from the UK, you'll recognise that the plug is a UK plug. However, they've actually gone on to selling these things throughout Europe with a different sort of plug interface. But anyway, this is a case study that we're going to be using today. As you'll see already, the design on the right, the picture on the right, we've shown that the dimensions of it, and this is essential for your product specifications. When you're actually going to be giving the product specifications to your supplier, you really need to give them something like this, but in far more detail on the product specification sheet. This would be one of the images, for example, that you would need to give. A lot of the time you're going to need to get well, for example, a freelancer, or if you have your own designer, you're going to need to give them the dimensions. You're going to need to tell them exactly and show them exactly what you want and what your expectations are, unless it's obviously an ODM product, which will make it far simpler to begin with. But if it's OEM, images, videos, you really need to give, and sometimes you're going to need to send them samples so that they can actually deliver or manufacture the best product for you. But this is what we're going to be looking at today, and so moving on, here's a background of the company requirements. This is as it came in. So this is, we're not going to give the company name, obviously, so we're just calling them ABC Ltd. It's a Wi-Fi smart socket. Their target market was UK, EU. The reason, okay, so obviously the UK is part of the EU at the moment, but as we all know, the Brexit thing could well happen. It seems to be on the cards, maybe not. But anyway, if the UK leaves the EU, then there are going to be different regulations that are required. And the UK actually has its own regulations. So the reason I've actually put UK and EU is because they do have different regulations, and whichever country you are importing to will have different regulations. If you're importing to the USA, they have a completely different set of regulations, similar to the EU. I mean, it's fairly standard, but there are distinct differences. But also, this company here, they expected to have the designed manufactured product within 4 months. Now, this was actually an ODM product, so a 4-month timescale, yeah, pretty realistic, to be honest. Depending on the product, depending on the amount of design that needs to be done. Obviously, if the manufacturer needs to make the molds, if they need to make the tooling, and also the whole sort of sampling process, etc., could take a long time. But this was an ODM product, so 4 months, very realistic, to be honest. Usually, manufacturers, if they've got very, pretty much the same product already there, it's going to be very quick for them to get the actual product to you. So it moves really quickly, actually. And but we'll talk to you about timescales a bit later on as well. Okay, so now we're going to be looking at the actual manufacturing process of your product. The essential steps when you're importing a product are to look, especially if you're deciding which product to import, is to look at market trends, especially seasonality. For example, a lot of our customers do come onto the website and they think, hey, I've got a great idea for a Christmas product. And they get those ideas just after Christmas has happened. And so basically their product cannot happen again until the next year. That's an extreme example, but you actually have to be aware that some products sell at different times of the year. But also the trend. Has a product been doing well maybe a year ago and it's slowing down now because perhaps there's changes in technology or changes in the market itself, the consumer buyers? So yeah, it's good to keep an eye on market trends. So you've got to look at the geography of where your sort of target market actually is, what they're importing and exporting, and also mainly what they're exporting. It's not really an ideal scenario if you're trying to import a product to a country that they already have a massive amount of. So when you're selecting your target market, you've got to look at the country's local demand. It takes a bit of research, but it's definitely worthwhile doing. This is not something that our platform provides. This is something that you are going to need to do. It's a bit of legwork. We can point you in the right direction, but you really have to do your research to ensure the best results. You can do this on Amazon, you can do this on Alibaba as well. You can look at sort of products and you can see how they've been selling over time to really mark and find which product is going to sell well, when it sells, how it sells, and you can find all of these statistics online. We can find everything online nowadays. But the regulations, I mentioned the regulations earlier, it's essential. It's essential. Whenever you're deciding a product, you've got to fully understand and check the required compliance regulations before you embark on your product design itself, just to make sure that it is acceptable and it can be imported and sold in your target market. And also you've got to look at the tariffs as well to make sure that, for example, there's no restrictions on the particular type of product that you're wishing to import to your target market. The product specification document, we've made this because it makes it very, very clear. Simple, clear and concise, as you can see on the slide. This is the only way, the best way that you have to give your detailed instructions to your supplier so that they know what to make for you. Also, it helps you to keep a track of your complete product. So along the line, you're going to be adding to the product specification template that we're going to provide you with in the course, and keep adding to it and make it larger, longer as you proceed through your process. And also it gives you comeback as well. Often most of our customers will send the same product specification document updated over time to the supplier again and again and again, so that the supplier knows exactly what is expected of them. And it gives you comeback as well. If you receive something that is different to your product specification, then you can say, hey, look, I sent you an email. It included the product spec, you agreed to it. And this is another thing as well, getting their confirmation before you do anything. Confirmation before sampling, confirmation before the contracts itself, confirmation especially before the bulk buy, and it's all on the product specification document. Very essential, very, very, I cannot express how significant the product spec document is throughout the complete process. So we give you a template, basically. We will actually give you a downloadable product specification template, as you can see there. It gives the functionality explanation, the product materials and size and dimensions, the labeling, the packaging, the compliance, and also the specific tests that are going to be required. You need to let the supplier know which tests they will need to be able to conform to when making the product. So you let them know beforehand, before they start embarking on something and making a product using X, Y, and Z. You want to say, look, this test is going to be carried out. This product that we're making has to conform to these standards, and all of this needs to go on the product specification document. So anyway, there's a downloadable template. It looks pretty much something like this, and you can upload your own images. It's a template, so you can actually click on fields, you can upload images, you can add descriptions, you can add dimensions, you can add product sizes and specs, etc. Entirely how you wish to use it. You can add to it, obviously. So it's the bare minimum, and it guides you. That's the best way I can possibly describe it. It gives you everything that you need to consider. So when you're working down a template, so it's quite a few page document, but when you're working through it, you'll think, I'm not quite sure of that, might need to check it, might need to double check it, and then you put it on your product spec document. The template is there to help you to make sure you don't miss anything, but obviously you can add to it too. So that's the product spec. Now, when you're talking about materials, so okay, this is actually a screenshot from Amazon. There's a lot of information on Amazon, and also you're going to find a lot of information on Alibaba too about the product specifications of existing products. If it's on Amazon, the products are being sold, but if it's on Alibaba, it's actually the product that they have already that you can probably purchase as an ODM product. So you can get a good idea of the dimensions and all of the specifics that you need directly from the website, and we'll show you which ones to focus on and which ones are most important and which ones are crucial to you. But the glory of it is, if you actually look at something that's on Amazon, you can see what is being sold, and you know that it's sort of okay in your market already because you can see that it's being sold. This is why, again, we added the FBA, Amazon FBA to the import course, because you can sort of work backwards to decide your product if you haven't completely decided on your product yet. Our material guide, we've got a downloadable material guide here, really universal. So we go through all of the different materials, as many as we can possibly put on there. We've really gone into a huge amount of detail on sort of different materials and metals and plastics and woods and all of those bits and pieces to make it easier for you. So when you're actually deciding on the materials for your product, you know what to expect, and you can just download that. It's not a template, it's a guide, it's a PDF of all of the different materials frequently used and that you'd probably want to use, the most commonly used, so that you can actually sort of build your product and your idea from there. This is actually the material guide itself. So there's only a couple of pages of it. It's the first 3 pages of it. But it shows, well, for example, watches, what materials might be used in a watch, kitchen utensils, etc. What materials will be used for those different products, different tools, different whatever you're looking to manufacture. It will give you a good guide of the most commonly used ones, and the ones that are acceptable, and the ones that usually pass regulations. And it gives you a good guide. If you read through it, if you've got your product in mind and you look at our material guide, it will show you what you would usually tend to be looking at with regards to materials provided by the supplier. So now we're on to the fun stuff: product regulations and compliance. This is your responsibility, and I cannot stress this enough. You can't turn around at the dock, or when you've had maybe even your product has been imported over to your destination country, you cannot turn around and say, oh, it's the supplier's fault. The supplier made it, they should have known. No, that doesn't work. It's your responsibility. A lot of the time when it comes to regulations and compliance, it's to do with labelling, incorrect labelling, and we're going to be in the next slides, or the next couple of slides, we're going to be talking about the labelling that you need to have on your product and also on your packaging. It's essential. It is essential, and it's got to be done. It's not something that you can ignore or jump over. It's a requirement, and it will save you huge amounts of time. Without it done correctly, there can be repercussions, as you can see, with delays, fines, confiscation, prosecution. I put those in red because I really want you to focus on this and make sure it doesn't happen to you. As long as you take a bit of care and due diligence, it will be fine. But just make sure that you are careful and you do go through the hoops, making sure that everything is fully compliant and that your products conform to the complete requirements and regulations. Okay, so when we are importing to different countries, there are different regulations that have to be taken into account. For example, with the UK and the EU, as part of the UK, well, in the UK you have BSI, which is British Standard, but it also has the EU certification, which is Conformité Européenne, pardon my French, but basically it's a general European standard. Now, a lot of the time, for example, maybe you're using a mouse at the moment. If your mouse comes from Europe and you look at the bottom of it, or if you look maybe on the sides, you will see the CE mark, which shows the regulation, that it shows conformity to that regulation. So yeah, you just got to be aware of the regulations in different countries. The main one that you're going to see is CE. In the USA, there's the CPSA, which is the Consumer Product Safety Act. Also, it is commonly also known as the CPSIA, you might see that too, which is the Consumer Product Safety Improvement Act. Similar things, different guidelines. These things change all the time, and I'm going to talk to you about this more on the next slide. For Australia and New Zealand, you've got the AS and NZS mandatory regulation sort of stamp, which is actually mandatory and voluntary. They actually break theirs down into different categories depending on your product. There's 30 categories at the moment that you need to be aware of. So again, in our courses we give you the links to show you exactly where those regulations can be found, so you can make sure that you conform to them. But just be aware that they're there, and make sure that your product conforms to the required regulations. So as I mentioned, I said pick up your mouse, but any sort of electronic gadget that you might have that might have come from Europe, you'll probably see this on the bottom of it. It's the CE mark, and this is actually a certification mark for health and safety and environmental standards to show that it conforms to those standards. Now, just to show you how things can change, in 2014 there was a directive from the EU. So basically a directive is something that has to be followed within a certain timescale by all of the countries that are participating in the EU partnership. Came in 2014. It was enforced by 12th of June 2017. So by that time, every product that was being sold had to have that CE mark on it, and it had to conform to the radio equipment directive that was released by the EU back in 2014. So, I mean, this particular directive, it aimed to help to improve, counteract against fraud and protect people's data, and also additional sort of technical features so that the product was more compliant and safer for the user. Whether it works or not remains to be seen, but it's a directive by the EU, and I just wanted to show you this because it is an example of how things can change. And EU directives, they usually, as I said, they take a couple of years. They get brought in, and then there's a couple of years for for all of the member states to conform to the directive. Sometimes, depending on what the directive is, the timescale can be a lot shorter. But again, in our courses, we give you the links to all of the recent directives that are being released by the EU, and it's never usually an immediate thing, and then you've got to immediately change. There is usually some timescale there, so you will have a bit of time to prepare. Just to be aware of it. Compliance regulation tests, extremely important. They're to do with the safety, the labelling, and the warning labels and compliance marks. I cannot stress labelling enough. I talked about it a few slides ago, but labelling is crucially important, especially when you're, for example, your products are about to be shipped, and well, customs are going to check them. They're going to look for the labelling. They're going to look for the safety standards to make sure that the physical and mechanical requirements are met. All of the required documentation needs to be there, the product manuals, the warnings. You've got to give sort of instruction booklets, for example, if it's an electronic product. And whatever product it is, really, there's got to be sort of something in there to say, don't burn this, or don't eat this. It's got to have something on there, some sort of safety guidelines and guidance in some sort of warning material. You'll have seen them whenever you get a product. There's always a little bit of paper in there with some guidelines on it, and that's pretty much what that is. And substance and material restrictions, obviously you've got to be careful of those. Chemicals and metals, you don't want to be using chemicals and metals that aren't allowed in said country, whichever one you're going to be importing to. But the lab testing also, sometimes it's going to be mandatory, sometimes you might just want to get it done, but if you do, regardless, it's got to be done by an accredited testing company, otherwise it's fairly useless. So regarding the government regulations themselves and the hoops that you need to jump through when you're importing products, these, as mentioned, can frequently change. So you'll need to keep up to date with it. Now, the best source of information is the government websites themselves. All of the information will be on there. The only thing is you can perhaps have to trawl through many, many pages of legal terminology to get to the place where you want to be that gives you the details that you need. Just want you to be aware of that. The lawyer's agency route is probably your safest option. The only thing is it's going to be your most expensive option. Lawyers will give you peace of mind and legal comeback on the advice that they provide, obviously, but the fees can be extortionate. With an agency, it's probably going to be cheaper, but you might not have legal comeback on the advice that is provided to you. On our platform, what we actually do is position ourselves somewhere in the middle. So we give you the resources that you need. We show you the links and the pages and the articles so that it'll take you straight to where you need to get to, depending on your product or your jurisdiction that you're looking to import to. So we try and save you huge amounts of time by showing you where to go, and we update all of the information as much as we possibly can. Obviously, there's a ton of regulations with different jurisdictions, so sometimes we can take our eye off the ball slightly. Generally, fairly soon afterwards, we will be updating the links, so you'll be able to go to the place that you need to be at, which is going to save you massive amounts of time. So when it comes to actually sourcing your suppliers, there's 4 main steps. Now, our course goes into massive detail on what to look for and how to tell if your supplier is a good one, and we have a supplier checker tool too for you to use. So the main things that you really want to focus on is to make sure that the manufacturer specializes in your type of product. A lot of people tend to find a good supplier and they just want to use that supplier because they can see that they've been in the manufacturing business for so many years and they've had so many good reviews. However, unless they actually specialize in your product, you might find that the results aren't quite as expected, and it would be better to source a provider that does actually specialize in your niche. One thing I'd also like to say is that if you find a supplier has many products, different products, they could actually be a selling agent rather than a manufacturer themselves. You can tell this by their annual revenue each year also, so there are some telltale marks that will enable you to see if they are an agent. Obviously, they're going to be a middleman, so to get the best price, you're going to want to go directly to the manufacturer, which is what we're going to be showing you how to do. When it comes to evaluating the suppliers themselves, you can look at their capabilities and qualifications, reviews, and also whether they're verified as a manufacturer on Alibaba or Global Sources. I'll show you some certifications on the next slide, but the negotiation phase as well is important when you're trying to choose the ideal supplier for you. Maybe there's sort of cultural misunderstandings or negotiation conversations that do vary dependent on cultures. So, for example, in China, they like to negotiate. So they could give you a price, and then it's expected that there'll be the bargaining process to enable both sides to find a happy medium to proceed. So do be aware that you might have to negotiate a bit. Don't be put off by it, because it is part of Chinese culture and in many other Asian countries too. And the final step I'd like to just mention is to determine your supplier from multiple aspects. Don't just go for the best price. Maybe they have a great response time. Maybe their English ability is better, or maybe you get given a dedicated person who you can speak to and contact at any time. So do take in all aspects into account. So given that the company profiles, you're going to see on Alibaba and Global Sources, you can look at the complete company profile, how many years they've been trading for, their annual revenue, and also their product scopes and social compliance certificates. All of these need to be taken into account when you are deciding on your supplier. The more certifications that you can see that are actually on the platforms themselves will really show and give you peace of mind in your chosen supplier. If there are no certifications, then it could be a warning sign that maybe this company hasn't been trading in this product for a long period of time, or maybe they haven't actually passed the qualification tests and certifications that are required. So alarm bells could start ringing. But again, all of our courses will provide downloadable templates, of which a supplier sourcing is one of them. So I'm going to show you that now. This is the screenshots of the Alibaba platform and also the Global Sources. These are the two biggest. If they're not on Alibaba or Global Sources, they're usually not one of the big manufacturers. So my bit of advice here would be to go to one of these two, and especially initially stick to these larger platforms. They're renowned for doing this business, and any manufacturer who is any manufacturer should be on one of these platforms. You'll be able to go into all and see all of the details of the company profile. Our Alibaba course will take you step by step in what to look for on each of these platforms. We focus on Alibaba, but Global Sources is pretty much the same thing. If you can get to grips with Alibaba, then Global Sources will be extremely similar. Slightly different layout, but pretty much the same. So I would definitely check for the prices on both, as they can be different. Just one other thing to note as well, there are two different versions of the Alibaba website. There's an Alibaba for the Western world, and there's also an Alibaba for China, and the prices do vary. So it's very easy to go onto the Alibaba website in China, and you can use, for example, a Google Chrome platform. You can use a translator tool, so you will find the same products will be on both platforms, but the prices may be different. So that's just something to be aware of. And also you have AliExpress and the Ali warehouse trade. There are different forms of the Alibaba platform, and some of them have different minimum order quantities, different prices, and they are slightly different in some aspects. And so we'll be going through that in more detail too. Now, when it comes to the RFQ, the request for quotation, and also in the negotiation, you're going to want to see how quickly these RFQs come back to you. Some of them will reply to you within 24 hours. Generally, it's a good idea to allow them at least 5 to 7 days. Maybe give them a chase in the middle to ensure that they've received your request, and to make sure that your request hasn't gone amiss and that they will get back to you. But generally they will. If they don't, again, warning bells should start ringing, and maybe after 7 days it could be good to maybe scratch this supplier from your list, because they might not be as reliable as some of the others in getting back to you. So that's just something to be aware of. And when it comes to negotiation, don't be shy. Always ask. You can ask for free samples. Many manufacturers will give you free samples if you ask and you pay for the delivery costs. That's completely common practice. But also when you're negotiating, you've got to know your best, BATNA and WATNA, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement and your worst alternative to a negotiated agreement. You'll gradually get a feel for this over time, but by getting multiple RFQs is going to put you in a stronger position. So definitely get a few, not too many, obviously. RFQs usually between 5 and 8 will be sufficient, but it's good to get more than one, definitely. So yeah, timing is crucial as well, especially in the negotiation process itself. You could, for example, depending on the stage of the process, you could negotiate a better agreement if you come in at the right time, and this comes back to sort of seasonality as well. You can get a feel for the negotiation stages and when you need to start requesting maybe different bits and pieces, maybe additions to your order, etc. Or if you are designing your product yourself, an OEM product, maybe you want to make some changes a little bit down the line. You realize something's been missed, so timing is crucial. Maybe you can say, okay, we'll produce a few more of these. If you could please make this some small few changes for us. Little bits and pieces like that can sort of work wonders in your favour, and it's usually beneficial for the supplier too, so they're usually happy to do it. Perhaps if you increase your order or give them slightly longer to provide your order, just be aware that timing is a crucial part of the negotiation process. So when you are actually choosing your suppliers, we give you this downloadable template, supplier research spreadsheet. It's pretty much that you can compare the suppliers against each other. So it's got all the major fields that you're going to need there, all of the details that you gather. This supplier overview needs to be used continually, much like the product specification document, so you can really keep tabs all the way through the process of all the different suppliers, and then you can narrow down your supplier sort of search and pinpoint the ideal supplier for you. Also, on our website, as I've mentioned, we have a supplier check tool, the sort of orange colour on the right. That it has a list of questions which you can go through. If you're trying to decide which supplier is best, it gives you a sort of percentage score on whether or not you should choose this supplier or maybe a different supplier. So you can actually run the same check tool off multiple suppliers to see which one ranks the highest. You will also see there on the left the yellow box, the supplier list. We can actually provide you with a customized supplier list. The platform itself and the course will show you all of the essential elements so that you can choose your own suppliers and what to look for. However, quite often some of our clients don't have the time, or maybe initially don't have the confidence to want to choose the supplier themselves. So as an additional service, if you'd like us to, we can actually provide a list for you, a short list basically. It will come in a PDF document, completely customized for your product and your target market. So for example here, the sample list for the gaming mouse gives the criteria that you provide us with, and then we give the suppliers based on your information, and we give a list of them for you, why we've decided that they are a good supplier to use, and we highlight the benefits of using them. So we can actually do that for you. We can get these to you within a few days, and it'll save you huge amounts of time and also give you peace of mind as well that we are on your side working for you to find the best suppliers for your chosen product. And that's a 5-page document that you can actually obtain from us. With regards to product sampling, it is essential. Definitely never sort of get a manufactured product in bulk if you haven't initially had your sample, at least a pre-production sample, but often it's good to get a sample during the initial stages of the production also. And again, this is where I mentioned don't be afraid to ask. The suppliers, they will want a long-term business with you, so they'll usually be happy to take videos and give pictures of the sampling process and also a sample of the actual first batch if you ask them. Now, with regards to the paying for the sample, there's different ways of paying for the samples, and usually companies will accept PayPal, and you can pay with a credit card, escrow. There's different ways of making payments for the samples. Obviously, it's a smaller amount, so the suppliers will be a bit more flexible than they would if it is the large mass production. So we'll go into payment options that you can have for both the sampling and also the mass production in the course itself. But the reason to obtain the samples is because it gives you an opportunity to experience the actual look and feel of the product itself. You can actually feel it, you can test it, you can do your own quality testing when you have the sample, and it's good to get samples from different manufacturers also so that you can compare them. And also you can sell them if you want to gauge your customer's response and see if a product will sell. You can ask for some samples initially just to gauge your customer's response from it. So the main thing as well is that you can observe your supplier's responsiveness and their professionalism, the skill, the speed that they have in producing your samples, and that could be a good gauge how they're going to work with you with your mass production. Also, again, if you do get a sample, product improvements, things might get flagged that you think, this part needs to change. This is something that can be improved. So the sampling, it's essential, and it's great getting the samples when you receive them and you can see your product and you can actually touch it and try it out. It's a great stage of the process itself, and it can lead to some great ideas for the development of the product too. So revising, agreeing and paying, when to pay for your sample. Again, I said we'll go into that. Just a few things I'd like to mention is that the sample cost can be deductible. Usually it is deductible. If you move ahead with the mass production, then the samples that you initially purchased, usually maybe a higher amount, but they can be deductible from your mass product. So be aware of that and don't be afraid to ask. They will accept multiple payment platforms, and sometimes they will provide them for free. There's many manufacturers, if you shop around, you will find that they will give it for free, but you will have to pay for the post and packaging. The timescales can depend on the customization that you need to do. Obviously, if it's an ODM product and it's already pretty much there, they might have samples that they can send you straight away. But this is something that you need to take into account when you're calculating your timescale. Make sure you allow time for resampling. You might decide when you receive the sample you want some things slightly changed, and so this is going to take time for them to maybe remake the mold and to make the new sample for you. So do allow that in your time scaling. But we have, and you'll see on the left there, we've actually got the contracts that you'll need, the sample agreement template, the contract. Again, it's the essentials. You can add to it and you can customize it yourself. You can download it and then make any changes that you need to, and it shows the revisions of any samples that are made too. So it keeps everything very systematic. It's good for you so that you can see what's happening, what's been changed, which revision happened when, and it's great for the supplier also because it gives them a step-by-step of anything that you need to amend or alter. When it comes to the manufacturing and the quality, now this is when you're going to be building your mass product. Obviously, the contract has to be watertight. You're going to also have to give an initial payment to them. This is going to be a percentage and can be negotiated. Often it can be 30% or 50% of the completed product. We would usually go in for a 30% and 70% payable at the end when you've actually received the shipped products in your desired country of delivery. They can also say that you'll have to make payment when the goods are delivered to the shipping dock in the originating country. That is, again, something that can be negotiated, and it will depend on your method of shipping, Incoterms, which we're going to be talking about very, very soon. So the third step, when you've agreed on how you're going to make the initial payment, is the production itself, and whether you're going to need to have a lab testing done, which can be mandatory, or you might just want to do it for peace of mind. But quality control is another step that definitely shouldn't be missed, and something that you should really look into finding a specialized certification agent to do for you. We're going to be looking at each of these steps in a little bit more detail over the next few slides, beginning with the contract. So our platform provides a downloadable template for you to use, a production contract template, which gives all of the essentials that you're going to need to cover most of the essential bases. For example, product summary and specifications, which we've talked about. Those will be reconfirmed in the contract itself to draw the supplier's attention to the product spec document, which should be included when you send your contract to the manufacturer to begin manufacturing. The quality inspection and lab testing also needs to be noted on the contract so that the supplier knows what tests you're going to be carrying out. The packaging that's required, the shipping terms confirmation. One essential thing to take note of is the defective product maximum percentage rate. Obviously, you're going to be producing many thousands of products. There will be some defective elements, but obviously you want to make sure that not too many are defective. And what will happen if they are defective? They should be reproduced, or you wouldn't have to pay for them. For example, you could refuse the whole batch. Usually they will reproduce them for you, but you've got to have it in your terms in the contract what the maximum percentage of the defective rates can be, and obviously your quality test will show this if you use an accredited supplier. We actually provide quotations for the lab and quality testing. Some of the verified suppliers that we've worked with, they are good at what they do and they have full accreditation. So if you are wanting to find a qualified supplier, again, it's great to use as a benchmark so that if you have your own quotations, you can use our quotation as a guide. We will offer a discount for you with some of the suppliers, but we'll generally give you a list of chosen suppliers in your industry if we haven't worked with them before. So that will be there to help you. Also, the required product regulations and standards needs to be quoted on the contract, as well as the lead times and delay penalties. If a manufacturer is going to be well over the time limits that you are expecting and that are stated on the contract, that's obviously not acceptable, so the repercussions need to be stated clearly on the contract, mainly so the supplier knows what timescales they're working to. Payment terms and conditions obviously have to be on there, and clauses to say that your design is your intellectual property and also completely confidential needs to be clearly stated on there too. Here's an example of the product production contract itself. As you can see, there's fields there that you can edit yourself, make any amendments that you wish. We've tried to highlight in red. When you download the template, you're going to see all of the bits highlighted in red and yellow that are the bits that you're going to need to customize for your product. Obviously, we can't make it a one size fits all, so you will have to add in your own specific details, but we've got the essentials on there, and it's a great guide for you to use to make sure you cover all the bases. With regards to payment methods, now this is for the main batch production. So generally a supplier will want you to use a wire or telegraphic transfer. Now you might not feel completely happy with this, therefore letters of credit can be used. provided by your bank, so it gives you a little bit of protection, and there are actually multiple types of letters of credit which we go into in more detail in the course. Or you've got the choice of an online escrow, which Alibaba actually provides themselves, but again you pay fees for these things. So depending on how secure you are with your supplier, and if you've been using them before and built a relationship with them, you're going to feel more comfortable just sending them the preferred wired transfer, and also that's going to cut down your costs, which would be great. But to give you protection, things like the online escrow will give you more protection so that you can actually have a comeback before you make the payment. It's an extra layer of safety for you. Things like PayPal, nowadays more and more suppliers will accept PayPal, but it really depends on the amount, and again PayPal has fees. Credit cards can give you insurance and also another added layer of protection, but again usually only used on the sample production rather than the mass production, and there are other options too which we will go into more detail on the website, but they're usually less common. So when you're actually dealing with the production itself, it's important to get regular updates. Your supplier will provide these, but you will have to ask for them. Regular updates from the supplier, production pictures and videos as mentioned earlier, and also batch sampling. Get batch samples. Different stages as you can. Definitely your initial batch, you should be getting some samples from that to make sure that everything is going along the right lines. You will need to have some samples for your quality control testing and also your lab testing anyway, so your supplier will know that they are going to provide these. So yeah, just be sure and ask for them at an early stage and make sure they're in your contract. Now, when it comes to lab testing and quality control, you are responsible, so make sure you're an expert in your target market. We are going to give you guidance on what to expect and what regulations you might need and where to find them, the sources of information, where to find them. But it is important to get a third-party lab testing if in any way you're uncertain that some of the elements you might be using might not conform to the country that you are looking to sell in. So even though it's not mandatory, it's going to give you confidence in the compliance, knowing that you're conforming to the relevant standards and regulations in the import country. So do double check those, but as I said, we'll go into more detail in depth in the course. Now back to the smart Wi-Fi socket. When you're carrying out the lab test, as mentioned, we can provide you with quotations, and I'll show you on the next screen. Usually the process is to submit the application, so you send them the product specification basically, and you say this is the test that we need, or usually they might be able to advise you on the tests that are commonly needed depending on your product. So wait for the quotation and the testing details that they'll send back to you. If you're happy with it, then you agree it and you send them the batch samplings from your initial batch and you pay the lab test fee. Then it'll begin, where it usually takes a couple of weeks, so again allow this into your time scale. But when you receive the results, it's going to have a pass or a fail, so it will tell you if there's any, or the percentage that might fail the test, if it needs a retest, for example. If they actually go along and test the products on the production line, they'll give you, for example, a certain pass or fail rate, but this is usually after the main batch production has been finished. That will be when you actually have percentage defect rate. This could be carried out after you've imported your product to your country, but it's much better to do it before it leaves the destination country. Otherwise, it's harder to rectify later on. Again, this comes down to negotiation, and basically in the contract we've given some sample ideas for you to use and different options that you can use, and they would need to be negotiated with your supplier, which is actually another service that we provide. If you need one of our Chinese language experts or Chinese experts who commonly do this, speaking in Chinese to the suppliers in Chinese, which is often something they prefer because it's easier to speak in their native language, we can actually get some fantastic results for you with the negotiation negotiation process itself. If you pass, then you'll get the certification and reports that are issued. You've got to keep these in a safe place because you might need them later on. If it fails, it's going to tell you the revisions that are noticed and notify you of them, and let you know that you're probably going to need a retest. So the retest again needs to be confirmed in the contract. You're going to say, okay, if there's a percentage of defect, we are going to need a retest. So the supplier will expect this anyway. But you allow 2 to 6 weeks, depending on your product, for the lab testing part of the process. Just to show you quickly here, within your profile, we have the lab testing button there, so you can be able to fill in the fields and you can actually book a lab testing or a quality control quotation. So these will generally just be quotations for you to use as a benchmark, and if you'd like to go ahead with us, we will have a discount from the companies, our sort of preferred certification agents, which are the larger ones. So they are fully experienced in what they do, and we've worked with them before, and they do give us a discount. We're not particularly affiliated to any of them. We work with all of them, so we can provide multiple quotations usually for you to decide. It's not just usually one quotation. We can give you different quotations. They might have different timescales, etc. But as I said, you can use it as a benchmark. Use your own quotations as well. I definitely urge you to get your own quotations. But if you would like to use one of ours, it's probably going to end up being lower cost to you, which is nice. With regards to shipping and duties, it's different between sea and air. The taxes and the duties that you're going to have to pay, the tariffs, etc. But do be aware that you're going to have import duties and you will have costs for sea and freight. So we're going to go into a little bit of the Incoterms. It's a word you might have heard. A lot of people get scared when they hear the word Incoterms, but basically Incoterms come from the International Chamber of Commerce, and they're used universally to define methods of freight forwarding. Now there's some that are more common than others. Free on board, FOB, you'll usually hear it being called FOB, where the price includes delivering good to the nearest port. That is the nearest port to the manufacturer. Then it's your responsibility to arrange the shipping from there to your desired location, including all freight, shipping, fees, tariffs, regulations, etc. So there's more onus on you, basically, to get that done. Another common one is cost and freight, CFR, or CIF, which is pretty much the same thing but with insurance. So CFR requires your manufacturer to transport your goods by sea to the required port. That's the nearest port to you. They will also provide the required documentation to customs when the delivered goods reach the location that they're being imported to. So they're looking after more of the process with CFR. And CIR will give you insurance as well. Usually it's minimum requirements of insurance, but it is a bit of a safety net for you in case any damage happens to your products whilst they're being shipped. So shipping costs, these are just some considerations to take into account. You've got the transportation and freight and insurance costs when the goods are actually being transferred, delivered. You've also got terminal handling charges, some fees that you're going to have to pay. There's handling fees, clearing fees, document fees, and also surcharges. Lots of little fees, but they do add up. Don't worry too much about them. They're not scary amounts. If you're importing a lot of products, even with these fees added on, it's still going to be massively beneficial to you rather than buying your product and having it manufactured in your domestic market. So don't worry too much about these. We go into more detail in the course, but just be aware that you are going to come up against these during the import and shipping process. The freight documents, so we're going to go and show you some of the more common freight documents that are required. The CI is a commercial invoice. It's one of the most important documents in international trade and the freight shipping process. It's proof of sale and is a custom requirement document, so you will need one of these. You will have to have your commercial invoice, so be aware of it, and it's beneficial to have all of your testing reports, your lab testing, and your quality control reports ready to submit with these as well. Copies, obviously, but it's good to have these ready when you are actually submitting these at the customs port. A bill of lading, or BOL, another required document to move a freight shipment. It acts as the receipt of the freight services, so it's a contract between the freight courier themselves, and also acts as a document of title. A packing list, or PL, a document which details the contents, including dimensions and weight of your imported products, of each package, each container. It basically shows how it's being packed and the dimensions of it, how much space it's taking up, because there will be different charges dependent on the complete size of your packaged product. So this is something that will actually confirm all in detail, so that you're going to know what sort of charges are going to occur given the amount and the space taken up or weight of the products that are being imported. Okay, so the final sort of freight document terminology that you might come across is if you are transporting your products from airport to airport. It's called AWB, also known as Airway Bill. This is a transport document that is, it's not negotiable. You need to have it, and it's also got to have a consignee name. So that is usually the buyer or the importer themselves. However, if you're having an agency or logistics company to work everything for you, then it would be them. It doesn't actually, it's not a title of property, it's not the actual owner, it's actually who's going to be receiving it and taking responsibility for the merchandise itself. So it's just another thing to be aware of if you are going to be shipping by air. In the course, there are other pieces of terminology that you're going to be coming up against, like IC and COC and DN. In actual fact, in the course itself, we have a section, well, it's a huge PDF actually, of all of the most commonly used definitions that you might come up against during the import process. So any terminology you're not sure of, you'll be able to go into your profile and into the definition section and do a search for any terminology, so that it makes it very clear, and it speaks in layman's terms as well. It's not complicated sort of technical terminology that you won't understand. It really is a sort of a walkthrough of all of the pieces of terminology, how you can use it, when you can use it, and it explains it in nice detail, but not too much detail, just the essentials that you will need to use and know about. With regards to imports and tariffs and duties, the best way to explain these is, well, they can be used interchangeably. A tariff is usually a percentage rate, whereas a duty, for example, a customs duty, is generally the actual taxable amount. Now, tariffs and duties are interchangeable. They're usually set, well, they're set from the importing country. So a country will usually set the import tariffs and duties to protect their local market and the manufacturing within their local market against other countries' export. So it's usually used to reduce trade deficits, to gain revenue, taxable revenue for the government itself. And also I'm going to show you infographic here of how, for example, the USA protects their domestic market against the cheaper importing option of China. So it's looking at the FOB model, FOB Incoterm, and just looking at a product, for example, a toy of $5 from China to manufacture, a minimum order quantity of 1,000. The shipping from China to the USA is 200, and the duty that the USA imposes on the import products is $800. So it brings that to a grand total of 6,000. Now, if a person, an individual or a company were looking to manufacture the same product in the USA itself, the FOB price, for example, would be $7. So it would be slightly higher, which when you're producing 1,000 or 10,000 of those products is going to significantly add up. So the minimum order quantity is the same as from China. However, the shipping fee is a lot less, and as you'll notice, there is no duty, obviously, because it's being made in the USA itself. So no duty there, but you can still see that the grand total is 7,000, which is 1,000 more than the China option. So it's still more beneficial to manufacture and import, which is why it's such a massive business, really, and why it's still ongoing. And China is still the biggest exporter in the world. So that's just to show you sort of like a working example of the comparison. Working out how much duty you have to pay really depends on the country of origin and also the country the products are being imported to, because the tariff is going to be imposed on the country of origin generally. It's also going to take into account the type of product. Obviously, countries are going to want to restrict some products more than others. They can be an outright ban, or there can be higher duties, which will sway people to either buying domestic or manufacturing domestic, or to focusing on other areas of manufacturing. It also goes on the value of the product, and this is one thing that we will be talking about. You have to, when you're importing products, you're going to need to declare the true value of that product, a realistic value. So the value will affect the duties, but it is fraudulent and completely illegal to change or to give a value of the product which is less than the true value of the product that you are importing. So it's just something to be aware of. Obviously, it's something that you wouldn't really go down the roads of because of the illegality of it, but it's something to be aware of, that it is actually based on the value of the product too. So there's usually limits. Maybe, for example, it could change the choice of your product that you're going to manufacture, and it also could change the amount that you want to manufacture too. So a lot of these tariffs, they do use a harmonized system. It's called HS classifications. The US has their own, which is HTS, but it classifies everything so that it keeps it very, very unified, and so that customs know quite quickly and easily, as well as the suppliers and the importers, they know what product code is going to go with the import product. It's usually a 6-digit code. With the American system, it's 10 digits, but it's pretty much the same thing. The American version just goes into a little bit more detail to make it even clearer. But we explain all of this in the course. So this has been a lot of information. There is an expert available to you with all of our courses and all of our packages. You literally just click on the Ask Me a Question and one of our experts will get back to you, and within the expert page itself you will be able to choose whichever experts you would like to contact. So it will be experts in importing, or if with other packages it will be experts in sales, experts on Amazon. We have experts for all of our courses who will get back to you as soon as possible. Well, we aim to get back within 24 hours. Given the time difference, we get back as soon as we can. Sometimes that will be a complete answer. Sometimes we might need a bit more time to get back to you with a complete answer, but we will get back to you within 24 hours. We also have a forum, which you can see there. So all of our subscribers will be able to post any questions and queries on the forum, as well as being able to answer other members' questions and queries. And if we get too many of the similar queries on the forum, then we will just add it to the course so that everyone can benefit from it. So yeah, we like to keep the courses updated, as well as the whole platform itself, and we use the forum too to help us to do that. So any questions that you have, either ask an expert or put it on the forum, and you will get your answer fairly quickly. So given that, I'd just like to thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure for me, and I hope it's been rewarding and beneficial to you too. To express our thanks and gratitude, we will be sending you an email. Well, you may have actually received it already, giving you a discount code which is valid for 24 hours. And this is actually in addition to our reduced sale packages, which we have on sale this month also. So please have a look at our packages, but you will also be able to use your discount code if you'd like to go ahead straight away and delve straight in to learning how to import and build your business. And if you have any questions as well, there's contact us links, so we will get back to you as soon as possible in answer to any questions. Anyway, that's it from me. Thank you so much for your time. Any questions that you've put on the right hand side for our sort of questions on this webinar, or any questions that you've put in there, we will get back to you as soon as possible too. So from me, thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you on the platform soon. Thanks guys, bye.